I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mommy can't afford the academy application fee this year." Grace Holloway's mother had said those words 3 Christmases ago, and they still echoed in her heart. Now 25, Grace stood at the frozen bus stop on Christmas Eve, her dream of becoming a police officer feeling further away than ever. She worked double shifts at the diner, saving every penny, but her father's medical bills after his stroke had drained everything. The snow fell softly as an elderly man approached, his coat thin and torn. He counted coins in his trembling palm, then looked up with desperate eyes. I'm $3 short for the fare," he said quietly. "My granddaughter's alone tonight. She's only 7, and I promised—" Grace's hand moved to her pocket. $10, her last $10 until Friday. It was supposed to buy bread, eggs, and milk to last the week. She thought of her own father, bedridden at home, waiting for her. She thought of how her mother worked 3 jobs just to keep them afloat. But she saw the fear in the old man's eyes. "Here," she whispered, pressing the bill into his weathered hand. "Please, get to your granddaughter." The man's eyes filled with tears. "God bless you, child." The bus arrived. He climbed aboard, turning back once with such gratitude that Grace felt warm despite the cold. She watched it disappear, then began her 6-mile walk home in the freezing night. After 40 minutes, her legs ached. Headlights suddenly flooded the street. A black limousine pulled alongside her. "Miss, no one should be walking in this cold on Christmas Eve." The voice belonged to a man in his 30s, his face kind but marked by old sadness. Grace hesitated. "I'm fine, thank you." "Please," he said gently. "I saw what you did at the bus stop. That was remarkable. I'm James Whitmore. Let me drive you home." Something in his voice made her trust him. She climbed into the warm limousine. As they drove, James asked about her life. Grace found herself talking about her father's stroke, her mother's exhaustion, her dream of becoming a police officer. "My father was a police officer," James said quietly. 30 years on the force. He died responding to a domestic violence call when I was 12. Shot protecting a woman and her children. He paused. "He taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right when it costs you everything." "I'm so sorry," Grace whispered. "What you did tonight," James continued, his voice thick with emotion, "giving away your last $10. My father would have been so proud of you. That's the kind of officer he was. That's the kind of officer this world needs." They reached her neighborhood. Grace pointed to her small house. "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. I'll never forget your kindness." James reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "Please, will you call me? I'd like to meet you again, to talk more. What you did tonight reminded me of everything good in this world." Grace took the card, her heart full. "I will. Thank you." 3 days later, they met at a quiet cafe. James told her more about his father, about building his security company to honor that legacy, about losing his way after his wife died of cancer 5 years ago. "Grace," he said carefully, "I want to help you achieve your dream, not as charity, but as a loan. I'll pay your academy fees, and you can repay me once you're working. My father believed in investing in good people. Let me invest in you." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "A loan? I can do that. I want to earn my future with dignity." James smiled. "That's exactly why I believe in you." 2 years later, Officer Grace Holloway stood in her crisp new uniform, her parents weeping with pride at her graduation. She had worked relentlessly, finished top of the class, and within 3 months of starting her job, she began repaying James every month without fail. One evening, she visited his office with the final payment. "It's done," she said softly. handing him the check. "Every penny. Thank you, James. You didn't just help me financially. You restored my faith in humanity. You showed me that kindness still exists." James looked at the check, then at her. "Grace, watching you become the officer my father would admire, that's been the greatest gift of my life." Grace became known in her community for her compassion. She helped homeless veterans find shelter. She mentored at-risk youth. She sat with elderly residents who were afraid. She remembered names, listened to stories, treated everyone with dignity. One winter evening, she found a teenage girl stealing food from a convenience store. Instead of arresting her, Grace bought her groceries and helped her family apply for assistance. "Why are you helping me?" the girl asked, crying. Grace smiled gently. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. Kindness creates a cycle. Now you'll help someone else someday." Over the months, James began visiting Grace regularly. He attended community events where she spoke. He watched her comfort a lost child, de-escalate a conflict with patience, stand up for those who couldn't stand for themselves. He found himself falling in love with her integrity, her courage, her endless capacity for kindness. One Sunday, he asked to meet her parents. In their small living room, Grace's father in his wheelchair, James knelt down respectfully. "Sir, ma'am, 3 years ago, your daughter saved my life without knowing it. Her kindness reminded me what it means to be human. Since then, I've watched her become the most extraordinary person I've ever known." He paused, looking at Grace with eyes full of love. "I'm asking your blessing to marry your daughter." Grace's mother gasped, her hand over her heart. Her father reached out weakly and took James's hand. You see her heart. That's all we ever wanted." James turned to Grace, who stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "Grace Elizabeth Holloway, will you marry me? Not because I helped you once, but because you've been helping me every day since then. You taught me that love is just kindness that never stops giving." Grace dropped to her knees beside him, sobbing. Yes, James, 1,000 times yes." Her mother wept. Her father smiled through his own tears. 6 months later, on a spring afternoon, they married in a small ceremony. The elderly man from the bus stop attended with his granddaughter. The teenage girl Grace had helped was there too, now working part-time and staying in school. At the reception, Grace's father, with great effort, stood with James's support and raised his glass. "My daughter gave her last $10 to a stranger, and the universe gave her back everything." James held Grace close as snow began to fall outside the window, soft and beautiful, just like that Christmas Eve years ago. "Thank you," he whispered, "for reminding me what my father always knew, that no act of kindness is ever wasted. It always comes back to you, sometimes in ways more beautiful than you could ever imagine." Grace looked up at him, her heart overflowing. "It wasn't just me, James. It was us. Kindness only works when we pass it forward together." And somewhere in the city, in 1,000 small ways, the cycle continued. Someone helped a stranger. Someone showed mercy instead of judgment. Someone gave when they had little to give. Because that's how light spreads in the darkness, one small act of kindness at a time.